Imagine a family so powerful that they've shaped global health policy, influenced presidential elections, and controlled the world's oil supply for over a century. Now imagine that most people think their power ended decades ago. Look, when we think about old money dynasties, we usually assume they fade after a few generations, right? The Vanderbilts lost their fortune, the Astors declined. Carnegie's descendants are barely known. But the Rockefellers! They're still here, and they're more powerful than ever. You see, while other fortunes crumbled, the Rockefellers built something different. Not just wealth, but a system of power that transcends money. So buckle in. Today, we re-dive into the secret machinery that keeps the Rockefeller dynasty alive and thriving in the 21st century. Let me take you back to 1937. John D. Rockefeller, the original oil baron, has been dead for just a few months. His son, John D. Rockefeller Jr., stands at a crossroads. He's inherited not just billions, but a problem. You see, the Rockefeller name was toxic. Americans hated his father. They called him a robber baron, a monopolist, an octopi strangling American commerce. Junior knew that raw wealth without legitimacy was vulnerable, so he made a decision that would secure his family's power for generations. He would weaponize philanthropy. Now you're probably thinking, wait, wasn't the Rockefeller Foundation already established? Yes, in 1913. But Junior took it to an entirely new level. He didn't just give away money. He built institutions, the Museum of Modern Art in 1929, Rockefeller Center during the Great Depression, Colonial Williamsburg, a historical restoration project, the United Nations headquarters, built on land he donated in Manhattan. Do you see the pattern here? These weren't just charitable gifts. They were power moves. Every institution bore the Rockefeller name, embedding the family into the cultural, economic, and political fabric of America. This was reputation laundering at its finest. But here's where it gets really interesting. While Junior was building monuments, he was also building something far more valuable, a family office. Now, this wasn't just an accounting firm. Room 5600, located in Rockefeller Center, became the nerve center of the family's empire. It managed investments, coordinated philanthropy, handled legal matters, and most importantly, it trained the next generation. The Rockefeller family office pioneered wealth preservation strategies that wealthy families still copy today. And the key to their success: they never kept all their money in one place or one industry. Let's talk about the third generation, because this is where most family fortunes die. There's even a saying in China, wealth does not pass 3 generations. But the Rockefellers had 5 sons in the third generation, and they became known as the brothers: Nelson, David, Lawrence, Winthrop, and John D. Each brother was assigned a different sphere of influence. Nelson went into politics, becoming governor of New York and vice president under Gerald Ford. David ran Chase Manhattan Bank, becoming one of the most powerful bankers in the world. Lawrence focused on venture capital, funding early aviation and technology companies. Winthrop became governor of Arkansas. John D. managed the family's philanthropic empire. You see what they did here? Now let's focus on David Rockefeller, because he was the key to the family's modern power. Born in 1915, David graduated from Harvard, studied at the London School of Economics, and got a PhD in economics from the University of Chicago. But his real education came from room 5600, where he learned the family business: power. In 1946, David joined Chase National Bank. By 1969, he was CEO of what had become Chase Manhattan Bank, one of the largest banks in the world. But David's influence extended far beyond banking. In 1973, he founded the Trilateral Commission, a private organization bringing together leaders from North America, Europe, and Japan to discuss global policy. He was also a longtime member of the Council on Foreign Relations in the Bilderberg Group. These weren't social clubs. These were the rooms where global policy was actually decided. Here's something wild. David Rockefeller's personal Rolodex contained over 150,000 names: presidents, prime ministers, CEOs, dictators, religious leaders. He knew them all personally. When David traveled abroad, he wasn't just a tourist. He met with heads of state as if he were one himself, and in many ways, he was. Because David Rockefeller understood something crucial. In the modern world, private power often exceeds public power. Governments change, politicians come and go, but institutions endure. And the Rockefellers controlled institutions. But let's talk about the money, because that's what people really want to know. How much are the Rockefellers actually worth today? The answer is complicated. Forbes estimates the family's collective net worth at around $11 billion, spread across over 200 family members. But I think that's probably a massive underestimate. You see, the Rockefellers pioneered the use of trusts, foundations, and shell companies to hide wealth. The family's actual assets are likely much higher, possibly exceeding $100 billion when you account for all their holdings. They own real estate across Manhattan, art collections worth billions, and stakes in countless companies through various investment vehicles. But more importantly, they control access to capital and influence that money alone can't buy. Now here's where things get controversial. The Rockefeller Foundation has assets of over $6 billion and has given away more than $17 billion since its founding. That sounds generous, right? But critics argue that the foundation is actually a tool for advancing the family's interests. You see, the foundation funded the Green Revolution in the 1960s and 1970s, which increased crop yields in developing countries. Sounds great. But it also made those countries dependent on American agricultural technology, seeds, and chemicals, many of which were produced by companies the Rockefellers had investments in. So, was it charity or was it market creation? I think the answer is probably both. The same pattern appears in global health initiatives. The Rockefeller Foundation pioneered programs to fight malaria, hookworm, and other diseases. Undeniably beneficial, but these programs also opened markets for pharmaceutical companies and expanded American influence in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. The foundation worked closely with the U.S. government, essentially functioning as a private diplomatic corps. During the Cold War, foundation programs in Europe and Latin America explicitly aimed to counter Soviet influence. So we have to ask ourselves, where does philanthropy end and foreign policy begin? With the Rockefellers, the line is deliberately blurred. Let's talk about their political influence, because this is where the dynasty's power really shows. Between 1950 and 2014, a member of the Rockefeller family held political office continuously. That's 64 years of uninterrupted political power. Nelson Rockefeller was governor of New York for 15 years and vice president of the United States. Winthrop Rockefeller was governor of Arkansas. J. Rockefeller, David's nephew, was a U.S. senator from West Virginia for 30 years and before that, governor of West Virginia. These weren't ceremonial positions. These were power positions. Nelson Rockefeller shaped American urban policy. J. Rockefeller influenced healthcare legislation and intelligence oversight, and they used these positions to benefit family interests, legally of course, but the connections are undeniable. But here's what's really fascinating. The Rockefellers also mastered the art of marrying into power. Family members married into the Aldrich family, descendants of Senator Nelson Aldrich, who helped create the Federal Reserve. They married into European aristocracy. They married into other American dynasties. This web of marriages created a network of power that transcends any single institution. It's not just about the Rockefeller name anymore. It's about the entire ecosystem they're embedded in. Now let's talk about the real secret to their lasting power, because this is what separates them from other wealthy families. The Rockefellers created what I call institutional immortality. Most wealthy people build companies. Companies can fail, can be broken up, can decline, but the Rockefellers built foundations, universities, museums, think tanks, and policy organizations. These institutions outlive individuals. They perpetuate themselves, and they keep the Rockefeller influence alive long after any individual family member dies. Rockefeller University, founded in 1901, is still one of the world's top biomedical research institutions. The Council on Foreign Relations, which the Rockefellers helped fund, still shapes U.S. foreign policy. The Museum of Modern Art still defines what counts as important art. These institutions carry Rockefeller DNA in their governance structures, their funding models, and their worldviews. But there's also a darker side to this institutional power. Critics point out that these organizations operate with almost zero democratic accountability. Who elected the Rockefeller Foundation to shape global health policy? Nobody. Who voted for the Council on Foreign Relations to influence American diplomacy? Nobody. These are private organizations wielding public power. And when you concentrate that much influence in institutions controlled by one family over generations, you create an aristocracy. Legal? Yes. Democratic? Here's something that will blow your mind. In 2016, the Rockefeller Family Fund announced it would divest from fossil fuels, including ExxonMobil, a direct descendant of Standard Oil. They framed it as an ethical decision about climate change. And maybe it was. But it was also strategic. You see, the Rockefellers saw the writing on the wall. Oil's dominance was ending. So they moved capital into renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and impact investing. Same playbook, new century. They're not abandoning power, they're adapting it. And that's what makes them different from other dynasties. If you've made it this far, leave a skyscraper emoji in the comments.